Should be live. Here it goes. Oh, I should send out the announcement on Discord. And then, so I sent that out, and now I just gotta go into the live stream thing. If you're watching this from YouTube in the future, make sure to like and sway for something. Thank you for the glasses. Make sure to like the live or the video. Make sure to subscribe, comment, all of those things that you're supposed to do that I should be saying at the beginning of every one of these live streams. But don't, because I'm not a good content creator, it turns out. Yeah, but hi everybody. Hope everybody's having a day. Hope everybody's having the day that they deserve, whether that be good or bad. Yeah, I know Gary was talking shit. Gary always talks shit, but he can't take it, so. Howdy, everybody. We're just starting. I'm doing okay, everybody. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being so kind and to join me. You are early. Add a citation to this guy. All right, we have Turkish sausage. Turkish sausage. Sorry for the typing, y'all. There's a flat earther who thinks that he can prove relativity wrong on another Discord. Turkish, how's it going?
No, good man. How about you?
I'm doing all right. What God do you believe in?
No, I have a question. Are you agnostic or are you atheist?
I'm an atheist. What God do you believe in?
No, it's just I'm
questioning God. What? Why don't you answer the question?
Wait, what? Sorry.
Why not answer the question? What God do you believe in?
What God? No, I was answering. I was saying I'm still questioning God.
Okay. And how old are you?
Well, I'm 18.
Okay, cool.
So why aren't you agnostic? Like, do you? I don't know. Like, do you just deny God or?
I take agnostic to mean something like on the fence. I'm not on the fence.
Well, I think like agnostic means like, I guess being ignorant, but like embracing the ignorance, you know?
Yeah, I have been convinced that there is no God. I don't think that there is such a thing. I've been given what I consider good reasons. I'm not on the fence.
So let's say the Big Bang is real, and I mean that's what most science leads us to. You don't believe it's from a God. It could be anything, you say.
I don't think it could be anything, but it could be lots of things. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember Mike saying like people keep bringing up the fact that believers say not okay, look, believers keep saying that something cannot come from nothing, but Mike told them that like it could also be like people keep saying God, 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 but what if it's like, I don't know, he said like a quantum field or something. Like he said it could be anything. Like people keep associating it with God, but what if it's like totally something else or nothing at all? And I was just wondering, like, it's just so weird to me how well, I don't know how to put it in words. I'm sorry.
I mean,
Like, were you ever
no,
religious?
I was never a believer. No.
Yeah, and you're like a physicist, right?
Hmm.
Or did you major in physics?
I have a PhD in physics.
Ah, okay, yeah. So I'm guessing with the knowledge you got. Oh my god.
It's okay. I do not celebrate Christmas. No. Well, I kind of do. Like I do because my wife does, and so I do it with her because it's meaningful to her. All right, hold on. Russell's in the chat. Let's invite him up. Unless he's a coward. We're gonna make him fold. Don't worry.
Hey, what's up, Blitz?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. What's up?
Do you believe that for every proposition X, if X is true, then it is true because God grounds it?
Hold on. I heard you talking about this, but let me attack your view first before we talk about this.
Okay.
How do you ground knowledge?
As long as you promise to let me destroy your view in the process. But sure, go ahead.
So yeah, we'll go under my view afterwards. But how do you ground knowledge under your worldview?
I don't really have a unified theory of truth. I kind of lean on coherentism, but like I'm happy to, also take an axiomatic point of view.
So you don't believe in God, but you don't have a theory of like how to.
I don't have like
some
unified theory, no.
Okay. So why are you an atheist then? If you don't, why are you making claims of? Wouldn't you just take like an agnostic position and just like say I don't?
Because I've been convinced by arguments that are convincing to me that there isn't a God.
But if there isn't a God, then what's grounding reality in under your worldview?
I don't know if things need groundings. I'm not even sure like what it means to ground something.
Hold on, but you, obviously that's not true, right? Because like if you are presented with something, how do you decide if it's truth? If it's
it depends on the kind of thing I'm presented with.
The proposition is truth, or if it's false. How do you?
It depends on the kind of thing I'm presented with. Like I don't have a unified theory of truth. Like if my wife, or if I get home from work and my wife says, "You wouldn't believe this thing that my friend told me," and then she tells me it, I'd be like, "Huh, is that the kind of thing that she'd be likely to say?" Yeah, that seems true. But then if I read a new scientific study that makes some sort of claim, I would look at the data and I would be like, "Oh, okay, does that align with my understanding of XYZ phenomena? Huh, that seems true or false." And then if somebody makes some sort of like mathematical proof, I would look at like I just have different ways of evaluating different truth claims.
Okay, so you just like look at truth within like whatever you encounter, right? You don't.
Yeah,
you
don't
make
have a
any
unified theory of
what
truth.
you're able to. So you don't have any epistemic access to like objective reality outside of what you observe.
Objective reality.
Correct. Yeah.
Not some unified principle. No.
Then
I think that truths are in principle. Like I view truths as like properties of propositions, which are mental objects. And so, if you really want to get down to it, we can talk about like, this whole the whole notion that like in some sense we've kind of defined truth as a property of propositions in certain ways for different kinds of propositions, but it's not super. I don't think it seems super relevant.
Then like arguing with you would be like useless, right? Because you don't hold to anything.
I hold to plenty of things.
But you just said that you don't have a theory of truth that can.
I don't have a unified theory of truth.
But you can't make any like claims about reality under your worldview.
Just because I don't have a unified theory of truth doesn't mean I can't make claims about reality. That's a wild claim.
What do you mean? Like if I'm asking you, hey, how do you determine objective reality? And you respond,
I axiomatically accept.
I don't know. I don't have an ability to do so. And then I ask you, then how do you make claims? I'm like, well, I'm able to make claims. Like that's just a contradiction right there.
So, do you think that you need to have a unified? Okay, actually, let me. This is probably, I don't know if this analogy is good for you, but you understand that there's no unified theory of physics, right?
Okay.
There's like quantum mechanics and there's general relativity, and these are not unified. They kind of describe different realms of reality, and yet we can use them in the realm in which they apply to make statements about the world in a completely accurate way, right? And so just because they're not unified, just because there's not one coherent undergirding of like physics, doesn't mean that we can't use the things that we know to try to describe the physics in which we know that these things apply.
No, that's fine.
That's all okay. I'm doing. Like, I'm just saying that depending on the situation, I have different ways of understanding truth.
Yeah, but like outside of like empiricism, like you don't have any, like when we get into the metaphysics, when we get into philosophy, you don't have any
I'm happy to accept like logical deduction.
Okay, and give me like a logical deduction that you use to make sense of philosophical jargon, or
a logical deduction I use to make sense of like we just have definitions for words,
like how did
and then we can derive theorems from accepted axioms and definitions. What do you?
So like, what's some of the axioms that you use under your worldview to make sense of?
I mean, if we're talking like mathematical axioms, we could go with like ZFC, and then we can describe various arithmetic properties that you can logically deduce. If we're talking like logical axioms, you can go a little bit you can be a little bit less deep than that. You could just perhaps accept the fundamental laws of logic and perhaps set theory, so that you can do quantifiers. Like,
so all the stuff that we brought up, it's cool and everything, but what does that have to do anything with God? Like, how do you even jump into the atheist discussion if you have
there are positions that I've been convinced are true based off of various types of argumentation, right? There's empirical positions, there's deductive arguments, there's kind of intuition pumps. Like,
go ahead, give me a position that has proven God isn't true.
I've never made the claim that it's proven God isn't true. I've told you I've been convinced by arguments.
Okay, give me a position that's convinced you that God doesn't exist.
Yeah, so my understanding of the world around me is that it seems to be the case, just from my experiences, that every mind I've ever encountered is attached to a body. And we have pretty good Bayesian reasoning to think that this is the case, because when you, or rather, we have pretty good Bayesian reasoning to think that in fact minds are dependent on bodies. Because when you damage the body, you would expect under the Bayesian or under the hypothesis that minds are dependent on bodies, that the mind would be affected. And indeed, that's true. So like that gives me good inductive reason to think that minds can only be attached to bodies, that minds only arise from bodies.
Do you recognize any fallacies in this way of
this is not, I mean, like, I could lay it out in a syllogism for you if you wanted to. This is not a deductive proof. This is an inductive probabilistic argument here.
Did you recognize any fallacies that you just committed while you were?
No, go ahead and lay them out. If you think I made any fallacies, go ahead and lay them out. Yeah.
So do you understand what the black swan fallacy is?
It's not a fallacy when you're making a probabilistic argument. You know what Bayesian reasoning is. You know what inductive reasoning is.
Yeah, I think
I'm not making a claim that it is certainly true. I'm making the claim that it is likely true. The black swan fallacy doesn't apply here.
It's horrible. It's a horrible argument when it talks about God.
I'm sorry. This is one of the ways that we can make probabilistic arguments.
Not when it comes to the God argument, right?
Sure, it is. We should have very low. I mean, look. The point is that argument should give you very, very low priors for a God existing, because all of your experience says that such a thing should not be possible.
No, because you're using some kind of like physicalist worldview to come up with.
No, I'm just using everyday experience, right? I'm just using everyday experience. We have good reasons to think that when you damage the body, you damage the mind.
For how many years?
The mind seems to always be attached to the body.
To solve the totality of the universe is just silly, right?
Do you not know how like you can establish priors and how you can use inductive reasoning to at least assess what your priors should be? Like, is this not something that you're familiar with?
I know exactly what it is, right? I know what.
So then, what's your problem with it? There's not a logical fallacy.
It's not a strong argument against anything, right?
I mean, maybe it's not convincing to you, but it's convincing to me. Have you ever heard of the problem of induction?
Have you ever heard of the problem of induction?
Obviously, induction is not a proof.
Yes, also, yes, exactly.
I'm not claiming this is a proof. I'm claiming this is a probabilistic argument that's convincing to me.
You, right? You just take this like weaselly position, like I'm not making any claims.
Weaselly.
I just think this is the case, but I'm not making claims.
Wait. So you accept? Do you accept Bayes' theorem?
What's that?
Do you accept Bayes' theorem?
I'm not familiar with it. Tell me what it is.
Bayes' theorem is a theorem in statistics that essentially gives you the rules on how to update a prior to become a posterior given evidence. So if your prior is that minds are dependent on bodies, or minds come from bodies, or something like that, then you can go and test that. You could adjust your priors, or rather inform your posteriors based off of evidence. So if minds were indeed dependent on bodies, then things like putting a railroad spike through someone's head might change their mind. And then you go and you look at the evidence, and indeed, that is the case, that it does change their minds. So when you apply Bayes' theorem, you update your prior to become a posterior, increasing your credence in that position. And so we have billions of data points that when you screw with the brain, when you screw with the body, the mind is affected. And that's exactly what you would accept, or what you would expect under the hypothesis that the mind is indeed arising from the brain. And the mind is indeed attached to the body. So we have from Bayes' theorem alone, we should have very, very high priors that minds are dependent on bodies.
That's 100% wrong. Put in a syllogism, and I'll point out how your question beginning. Give this. Give me this in a syllogistic
you accept format, so premise one, Bayes' theorem holds. Premise one, Bayes' theorem holds.
No. I'm talking about you saying that the mind is an emergent property of the brain. Give me a syllogism supporting that.
Okay, yes. So premise one, Bayes' theorem holds. Premise two, if Bayes' theorem holds, and a piece of evidence is expected under a hypothesis, Bayes' theorem dictates that your posterior probability should be higher than your prior probability. Do you accept that?
So you're saying that this correlation somehow validates this argument that you're making?
This is just a statement of the meaning of Bayes' theorem.
You just gave a correlation that if we
Bayes'. Do you not like Bayes' theorem?
Hold on.
Are you not fond of a Bayesian inference? Like,
hold on. You said that if we damage the brain, and we observe that the damage that we cause some kind of a effect, that somehow like proves your.
It doesn't prove anything. It should increase your credence in accordance with Bayes' theorem.
But it doesn't, though, because there's other worldviews.
Okay, so you reject Bayes'. You know Bayes' theorem is a mathematical truth, right? You know Bayes' theorem is a mathematical truth, right?
No, that's fine, though. But I'm saying there's other worldviews that perfectly align with this brain damage occurring.
Sure, and it might increase the priors of those as well. But you'd have to, construct some sort of hypothesis that makes that prediction.
No, you don't, because I don't have to accept that.
Yeah, if you want to compare credence, then you need to have multiple competing hypotheses.
Correlation. I'm not going to accept the fact that.
Okay, so I guess you just don't like Bayesian reasoning, I guess. Okay, that's fine.
This is a valid argument.
I mean, look, so you know that, so Russell, you know that philosophers use Bayesian analysis all the time, right?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm just saying that's all I'm doing. You cannot make the correlation as an argument for grounding.
You literally can. This is how we do science.
No, I reject that. I reject that because.
Okay, I mean, you can reject it. That's fine. All of the philosophers in the world, all of the scientists in the world disagree.
In a very parasitic position. You're presupposing physicalism.
No,
right?
I'm not presupposing anything. It's just a hypothesis, and we're just testing the hypothesis given the evidence.
Then, if you're not making a hard claim, then I have no issue with you. Right?
Yeah, I'm just saying as a result of Bayes' theorem and as a result of the evidence that we have, my credence in the hypothesis that minds are dependent on brains is very high.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. If you're saying, hey,
that's why I am convinced, because my personal credence is very high.
What percentage would you give this?
Like 99.9%.
Yeah, okay. Cool. So this is almost like you're like 100%.
Almost certain. Yeah, I could be wrong. Like I could absolutely be wrong.
How did
but,
you
like,
determine
I don't-
that?
Well, because there's like a billion
that-
data points. I just kind of gave you like a random ass number, but like there's like a billion data points that supports my hypothesis. So
But then even if this is the case, right? If you say that these are like the mind is an emergent property of the brain, obviously you're taking a hard stance. But have you like looked at other issues that occur when you make this when you take this physicalist approach at the whole?
yeah, sure.
Right. So one of them
I
would
just don't
be
really
like
find them compelling.
your inability to explain immaterial things like concepts and abstractions that are that existed prior to the brain, right?
What do you mean they existed prior to the brain?
Prior to minds existing, we have stuff like logic. We have stuff like
Oh, I don't think so. I'm a nominalist.
What does that have to do with these things actually like?
I don't think that
being
those things
observed?
like have like ontological status outside of minds.
So you don't think that time was a real thing prior to humans existing?
I think that like stuff happens. I don't think that there's like some concept that we call time that has like ontological status. But like if you want to describe, if you want to say like
What does that
like,
mean? Stuff
that
happens,
processes
what does
happen,
that
that's
mean?
fine. I don't know what you mean by
yeah.
ontological status. Like if you mean that time is like a physical thing, then maybe that's true. But that's
Hold
not
on,
like an
hold on,
abstract
hold on.
thing.
I'm not
then.
gonna let you go out of this like with your like vague like response, right? It's either the case
vague.
that time occurred before we existed, or it did not, right?
Is there, wait. So when you say that time occurred, do you mean like that a process happened? That like some event took place and then another event took place after it? Or do you mean like there's some like vague like flow of time passing that like is like some abstract thing?
What do you take time to be? You take time to be.
It depends. It depends on my mood, but sometimes I take time to be what a clock does.
See, this is why I think I understand why people don't. You just don't take any positions. You just like very vague.
I told you what my position is. I'm a nominalist.
Okay, and I asked you, is time physical? And you're like, oh, it depends on my mood. It's just a
well, I mean, yeah.
So
the question of what time actually is an empirical question, and so like on some days I'm like some sort of space-time realist, and on other days I'm like a kind of I take a more quantum approach in which you have time is what a clock does. But like if I was on other days when I'm a space-time realist, I just say it's a physical thing that has ontological status. You there?
Sorry, man, I had a call.
You're good. Yeah. So
depending,
depending,
it's hard to debate something like you because you don't take any position. Like right?
I
You don't
literally
make
told you my
claims.
two positions. If you can debate either of the positions if you want, either like space-time realism or like a kind of time is just what a clock does position. You can argue either position with me. I'm happy to defend either because I'm not really convinced on either.
For
but
you,
they're both good
time
positions.
is the clock. Prior to us having clocks, time just didn't occur.
Well, so
Is
when I
that
say
kind of what you're
time
arguing?
is what a clock does, I mean like any sort of physical object that could be described as a clock. Like you could think of like the oscillations of an electron's wave function. That would be a measure of a clock. And so you could define time as the process by which its wave function evolves, or rather you could quantify time by the process by which the wave function evolves. The idea that time is what a clock says is basically just a relational description, meaning that time is just the relationship between space-time events.
It's capturing like change, right? Time is capturing change that we observe.
Sort of. That it's kind of a more B theoretic description. That like rather you view the entirety of space-time and you just say that time is what dictates the difference between events, essentially. Between events that are, co-located, perhaps. Yeah, something like that then.
Yes, so that change wouldn't be like a physical, right?
Yeah, so under that view, that time is what a clock says, time is not a physical thing. It's just like a way that we've come up with to like describe a phenomenon in the universe.
So cool, man. I finally got you to agree with something. So this like non-physical thing wouldn't be grounded.
It's not a non-physical thing. It's not a thing at all. It's a concept.
Well, you think concepts are not real?
Well, I mean, they're real insofar as they emerge from minds, but I don't think that they have like some separate ontological status.
They have different mode of existence than the physical things, but they're
I
just
think that they
as
exist
real.
in minds, and I'm a physicalist, so I wouldn't think that they have a different modal status. I mean, like, I would say that concepts are the same thing as software on a computer.
Okay, but even if you take that, even if let's say that the concepts on the computer are, let's take that analogy, where would those concepts of the computer come from? They all have some kind of
those concepts literally, under this view, those concepts literally are just a certain arrangement of bits.
And who decided what those arrangements were?
We all
Who decided
collectively
what
did.
the arrangements should have been? Like, is it one individual mind that decides, hey, these are the
whoever
concepts
the
that we're all gonna
programmer is, and then
use?
whoever the viewer is.
So who's the programmer within humanity of what concepts are going to be used?
We're the ones who come up with our minds, or we're the ones who come up with our concepts. So like,
and how come we're interconnected when we come up with these individual concepts?
well, we're not until we communicate them, right?
Yeah, but communicating and understanding points to a connection, right? When I say we're talking right now, these words that I'm saying, you're understanding the meaning behind them, right?
Yeah, because we share a language and we both have mutual understanding of, like, we both have our own concepts of what those things are.
Even if we didn't have a mutual understanding, like, we can do sign language, right? And
yeah, we could like point to things, and if you point to a tree, I know what pointing is because I've thought about that. I have a concept of pointing, and if you point to a tree, then I assume that you're trying to say something similar to what I conceptualize as pointing.
Cool. Yeah. So we use these concepts to connect our mind to the physical world, right?
I don't know what it means to use a concept to connect our mind to the physical world. Like, look.
So when I say tree, when I say tree, this word for you is able to light up, and you're able to imagine what
neurons
it is
in my brain, sure.
Right. You're able to understand what's being said.
Yep.
Right. So you don't have to. I don't have to every single time that me and you talk. I don't have to point to a tree and be like, "Hey."
Yeah,
Blitz,
because I know what a tree.
About,
because I'm familiar with the tree concept. Yeah.
Correct. So that's what it means to have that
language.
Connection. That's what it means to have that connection between the physical and the mental. That
but I mean, I view the mental as just kind of like a convenient abstraction describing the physical.
You view the mental as a convenient what?
A convenient abstraction. So it's not like really a separate thing in the same way that, like, you know, a computer program is not really separate from like the ones and zeros that make it up. But we kind of think about the computer program as separate from the ones and zeros because it's convenient.
Oh, this is just parasitic on your physicalist worldview, right? So your physicalist world presupposition just dictates all other conclusions that you come up with.
Okay, is that supposed to be a critique? Like,
it is because it's just.
How is that a critique? You're just saying that my worldview is consistent.
You're just presupposing. You're saying, hey, I'm gonna hold to this physicalist worldview, and I'm gonna try to make everything fit into this physicalist worldview.
Yes, you caught me. I was being consistent. Do you have an actual argument now?
I'm just gonna be very, very biased and just ignore and be like, I'm gonna change definitions. I'm gonna make things that are
changed. Wait. So do you actually have an argument, or are you just describing my worldview now?
No, I'm just saying that it's not a real worldview, right? You don't have anything.
It turns out, hey y'all, you hear that? You hear that here first? Physicalism's not a real worldview, apparently.
Yeah, it's very bad. It's trash. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. I mean, look. Hey, if that's your opinion, that's great. But you should actually present an argument rather than just describing my position, then just being, will you listen to this guy?
Yeah,
that's all you're doing. All you're doing is pointing out my argument and scoffing. Or pointing out my worldview.
You know, I asked you what is it that makes mental states that me and you are able to have the same mental states?
I said that we don't have the same mental states. I said that we have similar mental states.
What makes it that we have? What allows for you and me to have similar mental states?
We live in a similar world. We experience similar things. We have similar brains that lead to similar conclusions. You just
repeated my question. I asked you, how do we have similar experiences? You're like, because we have similar experiences.
We have similar experiences because we live on the same planet, right? And we have similar brain structures. We have similar experiences in social situations, like.
Again, so I'm asking you, how do we have similar experiences? You're telling me.
Are you asking? Wait. Then maybe I'm not understanding. Like, when I think of an experience, I think of a thing that happens to somebody, right?
Yeah. Why is my experience similar to yours?
Oh, I don't know if it is. Maybe your red isn't my red, but the outcomes of those external experiences lead to a way of communicating that is similar.
If you don't know that they are, though, then how do you live life without knowing that what me and you or people around you are even like experiencing, or like
whatever you're actually experiencing?
How do you have
whatever you're
coherent
actually
conversation if you don't
experiencing
know
when
what
you
the hell
say
people
red,
are, like, experiencing?
whatever you're actually experiencing when you say red, I have no access to. But as long as when you point at red, it's the thing that I experience as red, it's fine. We have no problem communicating. I don't care what's going on inside your brain.
So the fact that I point at red and you point at red, there is a connection, right? So you realize that there is a connection.
Well, no, I point at something and you point at something, and the thing that we're both pointing at is what I call red. And the thing that we're both pointing at is what you call red. But maybe you have a different experience. Who knows? Maybe your brain is doing something funky. Maybe you have like,
hold on.
I don't know. Maybe you have synesthesia.
If you say red and I point to blue, then it's obvious that we're not having the same experience.
Yeah, then we disagree and we got our concepts mixed up. Yeah.
Okay, but the fact that when you say red and I point red and you point red, it's evidence that we are having a similar experience.
Well, not quite. You could be pointing at what I describe as red, but you just learned that what I describe as red is blue for you, but you learned that that's what people call red. Like
this is the best thing I've heard. Hold on, run that back one more time. What did
all I'm saying is that what I perceive as red, you could be perceiving as blue, and we just have the same name for it.
Okay.
And there's no way for me to access what your experiences are directly.
So let's talk about the color's a little bit tricky because color is very subjective. Let's talk about time. Is that like something that me and you experience differently?
I'm not even sure what it means to experience time.
Dude, you don't know anything, bro. Like, why am I even up here? Like, I'm just gonna drop.
I'm sorry that I'm more thoughtful than you, I guess. Hey, so
no, you're not thoughtful. You just
before you run, let me destroy your worldview.
Conversations. What's that?
Before you run, let me destroy your worldview. Sound good?
Okay, I promise I would let you go into it. Go ahead.
All right. So, would you defend the position that for every proposition X, if X is X is true if and only if God guarantees X, or something like God ensures X, or God grounds X, or something like that?
Okay, so I'm gonna reword it in my own to see if it, because this is the way I'm understanding it. It's almost like saying God is the truth maker.
It's something like that, yeah. But it's more formal than that. Yeah. It's because God is the truth maker is not like a formalized sentence. So
okay, yeah. I agree with that statement.
So okay. So would it then follow that in whatever formal language you're using to describe propositions, because we have a quantifier here, you are working in a formal language, that this means that there is a truth predicate in that language.
Okay.
Okay, actually I shouldn't have asked that question because it was a trick question, because no, there is no truth predicate in that language. This was proven by Tarski's undefinability theorem. It's a theorem of philosophical
Can you break that
logic.
down for me?
Yeah, so are you familiar with like Gödel's incompleteness type results?
No.
Okay, so essentially, I'm surprised. Okay, I'm actually surprised that I haven't heard of Gödel's incompleteness theorem. But anyway, yeah. So Tarski's undefinability theorem says that if you have some formalized language that is capable of doing things like quantifying, LeClown, thank you for the $2. If it's capable of doing things like quantifying or writing existence, just the normal things that you'd expect from any sort of first order theory. What Tarski's undefinability theorem is that any language that has those properties cannot contain a truth predicate, meaning that it cannot contain some sort of formal operator that takes as input a proposition and outputs whether it's true or false. And this is like mathematically proven. You know, like I could walk you through the theorem, I could walk you through the lemma that's used to prove the theorem. It's not that bad, but it has a Wikipedia page. Look up Tarski's undefinability theorem. You can look into it. So what that means is that there is no language, there is no formal language in which you can say, in which the proposition X is true is a well-defined notion. There's no formal language in which X is true in, well, let me rephrase. If you're in a language L, And that language will have, propositions in it, it will have predicates in it, it will have operators in it, and so on. What the undefinability theorem shows is that there is no predicate, there is no truth predicate that evaluates the truth in the language L. And what that means is that the sentence, X is true if and only if God grounds X, is not a meaningful sentence in any formal language, because there are no truth predicates. So, in fact, not only can you not say that God grounds everything in any sort of formal way, you can't say that anything grounds anything in any sort of formal way. And all this means is that there can't be some unifying grounder.
Can you send this to me? I love to look at it and come back and discuss this with you.
Yeah, sure. Do you have Discord?
I do, yeah.
Can you join my Discord so then I can DM you?
Yeah, can you put on the comments and I'll
my Discord, if you go to the link tree in my bio, there will be a Discord link somewhere in there.
Okay.
I don't have like one of those fancy named Discord things. But yeah,
cool,
so if you DM me on Discord, I can just send you like the write-up that I have.
Cool, man. This is interesting, and no, thank you for the conversation. I'll definitely look into this because this is something that's interesting to me.
All right, take care, bud.
Cool, man. Thanks. Bye.
Russell is nice. Ian did tell me that he's nice, but like, man, is it frustrating? It can be frustrating. Like, I don't know. There's no dig at you, bud, but all right, let's talk to Database. By the way, if you guys like what you're seeing, make sure to like the live, make sure to join the Discord server, make sure to, subscribe if you're watching on
Blitz.
YouTube or whatever. And if you want to support me, there's a whole bunch of ways to do that financially as well. Database, how's it going?
Hello.
Can you hear me all
hear
right? You can't hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you all right.
I can hear you now.
Great. Okay. What
How
God
are
do
you doing?
believe in? I'm doing okay.
I believe in Jesus Christ.
Okay. Tell me, what's the best argument that you have for the existence of the Christian God?
Honestly, an argument I want to ask you an argument beforehand, if you don't mind.
Okay, that's fine.
So, because I don't have a background in physics, I have a master's in computer engineering. So, do you believe in the Big Bang?
Yeah.
So, what was required for the Big Bang to take place, or what was absent to require that? Because I'm not sure.
I don't know what you mean by absent. I mean, like, the Big Bang was just a rapid expansion of our universe. The cause of that, whether it had whether there was stuff before it or whether there wasn't stuff before it, is a different question. It's hard to say. I kind of lean towards there was stuff before it, but maybe there wasn't.
All right, so let's say there was stuff before, right? Because that's what you believe in, and I believe in that as well. Who put that stuff there? How did that stuff come to be there?
I would just suppose that the stuff before that was the cause of the stuff before the Big Bang.
Okay, and then where did the stuff before that come from? Because I'm not saying
was
that you have to
caused by
believe
the
in a
stuff
God,
before
but
that.
I think it's foolish to believe that there isn't a higher power because somebody put that stuff there, no?
I lean towards the universe having always existed.
Yeah, so who put it there?
If the universe has always existed, it doesn't need to be created.
That's such a bad argument, though, because that doesn't make sense.
How do you create something that's
something
always existed?
Something had to create it, though.
If it was created, then it would have a beginning, would it not?
Yeah, so didn't the universe have a beginning, aka the Big Bang?
No, I don't think so.
Isn't the Big Bang the beginning of the universe? Isn't that where time starts, technically?
No.
According to physicists?
No.
Because technically, nobody knows about this 100%, technically, but I guess, based on the leading theories, doesn't time start at 0 from the Big Bang?
No.
So where does time start?
Well, there is no consensus as to whether time even has a beginning.
Okay.
Like, if time has a beginning, then it may have started at the Big Bang, or it may have started at some earlier point. If time doesn't have a beginning, then that means that it didn't start. It's always been going.
Okay, but you still can't give me an answer of who put the stuff there for the Big Bang. You can't just say it was there. Like, that makes no sense.
If it always existed, then there's no need
but you
for
don't know
anybody
that.
to put anything there. Well, no, I mean, like,
but you don't know that.
Look, so there's two options. It either always existed or it didn't. If it always
Yes.
existed, then nobody needs to have put it there. If it didn't always exist, well, then we need to think about, well, what was it doing? And I have an answer for that too, or at least a possible explanation for how it exists, having had a beginning. But I don't know if you want to get into that. We can, but
Yeah, sure, please.
yeah. So I mean, you have a background in computer engineering. So
Yeah.
how's your
Yeah, I have a bachelor's
how's
in
your
computer
complex
engineering and a master's in
analysis?
computer science. Complex analysis? I mean, nah, I never took complex analysis. That was never required for us.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't know. So there's a model that describes. It's called the Hartle-Hawking model. It was proposed by James Hartle and Stephen Hawking in the 80s, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Okay.
And this is a description of a universe with a beginning, but no cause. And the way it works is essentially the Big Bang was, say, t equals 0, and prior to t equals 0, there was no progression of time, but there was space, and the space was timeless. And so the Hartle-Hawking model has a timeless space that gives way to a beginning of time at a particular place. So there is still a first moment in this model, but it doesn't have, but it is still uncaused.
So, and
Because
what
there
does
was
this
a
have to do
timeless
with my
space.
argument?
Well, the point is that you can have an uncaused beginning in a kind of
But
timeless
Blitz,
way.
that just logically that doesn't make sense though, because hey, listen,
Where's the
this is
issue?
my argument. I just want you to hear my argument first of all, because I'm not saying
Sure,
you have to
go ahead.
believe in Jesus Christ or Allah or whatever, but I just think it's foolish not to believe in a creator, because
Why?
obviously somebody created all of us. Who created you and your parents, people
My
before
mom?
before that? So,
Their moms?
okay, and then we're never gonna find an answer to who actually created the first person or whatever, because then you could say there's a God, and then who created God? Who created God?
No, it was
blah, blah, blah.
evolution. Evolution did.
But there's okay, but who put into place for the Big Bang to happen? Because
I don't think that it was a who. I think it was just a thing that happened.
You see, but that's the problem though. Like that's such a.
Do you
that's a
have
bad
wait?
way
So
of
so
thinking.
you keep saying it's illogical. Do you have any like logical proof that this is the case, or are you just kind of going based off of feels and vibes?
Because I feel like, how are you a physicist and you believe in the Big Bang, but then you say like it was just there or it just happened? Obviously, somebody put it there.
Why? Why is that obvious?
Because something can't come out of nothing.
Nobody's saying it came out of nothing.
That's what you're saying. It was
Literally
just there.
not.
That means it came out of nothing.
No, I'm saying that it was caused by something, either by
So
a
if you don't
location
believe
and
in a God, doesn't it come out of nothing technically? Doesn't
Sorry?
something come out of nothing if you don't believe in God?
No, nothing comes out of nothing. Although I'd actually love to hear your argument as to why. Hold on.
So nobody exists.
No, I don't think that there was ever nothing. I'd love to hear your argument to prove that nothing or that something can't come out of nothing. I'd love to hear that.
Hey, I don't think anybody can provide like 100% like concise argument, but I think most logically you have to believe that there's a creator, like just a creator.
You haven't provided a
Whatever
logical
religion
argument,
best
so
fits
why are
it.
you saying most logically?
Because how can you believe that something comes out of nothing?
I don't think that something comes out of nothing. That's not what I think.
So no, so you think nothing comes out of nothing?
I don't think that nothing exists.
So then how are we here? That makes no sense. What? You
Because
think
we live in
nothing exists?
we live in a universe that exists.
You just said nothing exists though.
No, I said nothing doesn't exist. I don't think nothing exists.
What? You don't think nothing exists. So you think something exists.
Yes, I think that there is always, in some sense, I think that there's always been something. Yes.
Okay. And you think that nothing created that something? That
No,
there
I don't
isn't a
think that there
higher
was ever
power that
nothing.
created us?
I don't think that there was ever nothing. Nothing didn't create anything.
Nothing didn't create anything. Nah, you're just going in circles, bro. Because
Hey, so
Yo,
you've
that
said the
just
word
makes no
logically.
sense. What?
You've said the word logically. It just doesn't make sense to believe in God. You've said that phrase like now 3 times. Can you actually provide a
I
logical
didn't say
argument?
that.
Yeah,
I didn't
you
say
absolutely
logically.
did. We want to replay the tape. We can replay the tape.
I didn't say logically it doesn't make sense to believe in God.
No, you said
Logically, it
logically
makes
it doesn't make
sense
sense
to
to
believe
believe in a creator.
I did not say that because I believe in a creator. That means that would mean I'm illogical.
No, you said logically it doesn't make sense to not believe in a creator.
No, now you're twisting the words. That's not the same sentence you said before.
It's literally the same sentence. Do you want to replay the tape?
It's not, bro. Yeah, replay for me,
Okay.
please.
Come on. There's got to be a better way to.
Because yo, I'm really trying so hard to understand you, but like you use all these big words and go in circles, and it makes no sense.
Something comes out of nothing. That's not what I think.
So you think nothing comes out of nothing?
I don't think that nothing exists.
So then how are we here? That makes no sense. What?
Because we live in a universe that exists.
You just said nothing exists, though.
No, I said nothing doesn't exist. I don't think nothing exists.
What? You don't think nothing exists, so you think something exists?
Yes, I think that there's always, in some sense, I think that there's always been something. Yes.
Okay, and you think that nothing created that something?
No, I don't think that there was ever nothing.
Yeah, I'm still waiting, bro. You're playing the whole lie. You gotta waste my time. You about to kick me off. But your argument makes no sense, and you know that. Nah, you're just going in a circle. Because
hey, so you said the word logically.
Oh, I must have skipped it.
yeah, you did. Because I did not say that. I would not say that. I'm baked as fuck right now, but I would never say that. It was just there, or it just happened. Obviously, somebody put it there.
Why? Why is that obvious?
Because something can't come out of nothing.
Nobody's saying it came out of nothing.
That's what you're saying. It was
Literally
just
not.
That means it came out of nothing.
No, I'm saying that it was caused by something. Either by a location and
God, doesn't it come out of nothing technically? Doesn't
Sorry?
something come out of nothing if you don't? You see, where did I say that it's?
No, nothing.
We're
comes out of
gonna
nothing.
listen to it until you did.
No,
I mean,
I'd
like,
actually love to hear your argument as to why. Hold on.
I did not say that, Blitz, because that sounds
No,
like
I don't
something
think
so
that there was
wrong. I
ever
would never
nothing.
say that.
I'd love to hear your argument
You're
to
trying to
prove
catch me.
that nothing,
You're
or that
crazy.
something can't come out of nothing. I'd love to hear that.
Hey,
it was before this.
I don't think anybody can provide like 100% like concise argument, but I think most logically you have to believe that there's a creator.
There you go.
Just a creator. You haven't.
There you
Yes,
go. Most logically, you have to believe in a creator. What's the logical argument then?
That's
What's the
I'm
logical
not
argument
saying
then?
you. I'm saying a person in general. I
What's the
wasn't speaking to
logical
you
argument
directly.
then?
The logical argument is that we did not come from nothing. So something.
No,
had to
but
create us.
how does that imply a creator?
A creator because we didn't create ourselves, so there has to be a creator.
Suppose that we didn't come from nothing. How does that imply a creator?
Because we did not create ourselves, so obviously a creator had to create us. Whoever
Why
that
couldn't
creator
something?
is.
Why couldn't a non-creator create us? Why couldn't it be some natural cause?
Okay, so please indulge me on what that natural cause would be. Let
I've
me
already
know.
given you an example for the creation
Evolution?
of humans, evolution,
Who-
for the creation of our
who put-
universe
who
via the
put into
Hartle-Hawking
process
model.
Who put into place the process for evolution's sake?
Evolution doesn't need a thing to put it into place. It's just a result of the law of large numbers.
Okay, but you could say that about everything, like the Earth being in the Goldilocks zone or whatever. Like everything was perfect for things to happen, Blitz. And like I'm not saying that's
No,
a
wait,
result
you
of
think
God,
so?
but that's a result of a creator.
Wait,
a
why-
creator
why-
had to put things there for
Why do you
things
think
to take
so?
place.
Oh, so now we're pivoting to the fine-tuning argument? Is that what we're doing?
No. That's because you brought that up.
I didn't bring
I
that
didn't
up.
bring that up.
You asked me what created us, so, and I said I can give you a naturalistic explanation for these things.
Yeah, I believe in evolution though, but I also believe in God. I believe that God put things into place and then things took their natural course, like evolution. That's what I think.
Okay, why?
I believe
why
in
God,
science and God, bro. You can do both.
Well, I'm sure you can. I just don't know why you would.
Because science describes how the world around us works and everything, and God
agree.
describes how things worked before. Because you also have to have faith too. Because God is also.
How do you know that
faith.
there was a
Like,
before? Or how do you know that how do you know that the universe had a
Because
beginning?
dinosaurs existed 65 million years ago or whatever.
Sorry,
because,
how do you know that the
I don't know,
universe
the
had a
Big
beginning?
Bang happened 14 billion years ago. That's
How do you
what I
know that
think
the
at least.
universe had a beginning?
Because scientists say the Big Bang happened, and I go
The
off
Big
their
Bang
word,
doesn't have
just
to
like
be the
you should.
beginning. The Big Bang doesn't have
So
to
was
be the
the
beginning.
so was the beginning. So was the beginning of the universe.
I'm asking you, how do you know that there was a beginning?
I don't know. I just go off of science's word that the Big Bang
Okay, well,
happened.
that
That's what
hasn't
I
been
go off.
science's word since the 80s.
Okay, so what's the new word?
The new word is that we don't know.
Okay, I mean I don't know either, but I'm just going off the science.
So then why do you believe it? Why do you believe it if it's not scientific consensus anymore?
Blitz, I believe because I can't prove it. I can't just go back in time and.
So you
prove
just
this is what
believe
time
one
started.
rather than being agnostic?
Yeah, I believe that that time started when the Big Bang happened because I
For
believe
no
in science.
reason, you believe that.
I believe that because that's when scientists say the Big Bang happened. and
That's
I'm
what
going off
scientists
their
said
words.
40 years ago.
But Blitz,
Were you
at the
alive?
same
How
time,
old-
you can't
hold
prove
on.
this either. I'm
Detabase,
24.
how old are you?
I'm 24. I'm just finishing
Okay,
my
then you don't have
master's.
no reason to believe this. You weren't even alive when people thought that this was true.
Bro, neither were you though.
Yeah,
old are
but
you?
I know what's believed now.
Okay, and I could figure out just by Googling it. That's not really.
Yeah,
that
you
special.
should.
Okay, but it's not going to change my view though, because I believe in the Big Bang.
So
and
why
probably, like,
why do you
5
believe
billion
that
other
it was the
people
beginning
do.
of time if there's no reason to believe it anymore?
All right, so what do you believe? When did time start? Never?
I lean
Like,
towards it
like
having
personal
never
time?
had a
Because
beginning.
time is a concept, first of all. It's not even a real thing, technically.
I lean towards it having never had a beginning.
Okay, but at the same time, like time is not a real thing. Technically, you could consider it as a real thing by saying the Earth revolves one time and then it goes around the sun one time a year. Like technically, you could tie it to a real like entity like that, a real event that takes place. But Blaze, like, I just think it's foolish to believe in science and also say that there isn't a creator, because who created the science? Who created all the
Why?
science?
Okay, you keep just making the claim. Do you want to actually provide an argument here?
Yes. So
Okay, what's the
like
argument?
you were saying, you still haven't answered my question. I said for the Big Bang, there was stuff there that was required for it to take place. How was it there? How did it occur
From
to
the
be there? Like,
previous stuff, I lean towards it having always existed. That's an answer to your question. Now provide
okay,
a
but
logical
that's not
argument.
an answer though. It always
It's
that's
literally,
kind of like saying,
it's
like,
literally an answer. Yeah.
that's kind of like, yo, that's kind of like that's going in circles though. It
Hey,
always is
so
like,
how did God get here,
he didn't get here. He's not here.
or how did God get into the universe?
I don't know.
Or-
He probably has a God of himself. He probably has a creator, and that guy has a creator above himself. Because technically, we're never gonna find an answer. You know that? Because let's say God
Wait,
exists.
do you
right?
believe that? Because
I
if you
think that
do,
he
then
does.
you're not a
Who
Christian.
created God then? And who
Wait,
created
hold
the
on,
man
hold
that
on. Are you a
created God?
you're a
Like,
Christian,
it's
right?
a never-ending question.
Are you
It's
a
loophole.
Christian?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you believe that God the Father has a creator, then you're not a Christian. Or if you are a Christian, you're going to hell.
Well, here's the thing though. I'm a Christian, but I'm also a scientist, man, and I also use logic too, like as much as I know, because I know I'm not the most logical dude in the world. But as far as I can see, like, God has a creator, right? Because obviously God didn't come from nowhere either. Even though
So then why would you pray to
religious
God
people, they're
instead of
gonna
the
say
creator
that,
of
'cause
God?
that's delusional though. That's delusional. Because I believe that you can believe in religion, but also not be delusional. Because they're gonna
So-
say like, "Oh, God." does
So
not
wait a
have
minute,
creator.
do you pray to Jesus?
Yes.
Okay, why would you pray to Jesus when he's not the man on top?
Well, technically, he's equal to the man on top because God is.
No,
technically
he's
Jesus.
not, because the man on top was.
Oh, you mean God's creator?
Yeah.
I don't know. Who
Why don't
God's
you pray to
creator is.
God's
I don't know.
creator?
Hey, I don't know him. Nobody mentions him. I don't know.
Wait. Have you met Jesus?
No.
Then you don't know him either.
No. But I know about him because I read about him in church, and then I don't know about who God creator is. Nobody mentions that. That's my like theory. I'm sure a lot of other people thought it too.
Yeah, lots of
Obviously,
people have.
I'm not the only one. Yeah. And hey, I agree with that.
Why not go
I'm
look
not
into
saying-
that? Because why would you pray? Why would you pray to the bottom, the guy at the bottom of the totem pole?
Because that's what we all do. Like I'm not gonna
don't.
go off my own way to just pray to some higher being. You know what I mean?
Why not?
We're
If
all
that's
in church, I'm
the
gonna pray to
correct
Jesus.
thing
I'm
to do,
gonna
why
pray
not
to
do
Jesus
it?
as creator. Huh?
Why not do it? Also, would you then say that the Bible's wrong?
I wouldn't say that it's wrong. because...
It says God created the world, right?
Yes, I agree with that. I think that God created the world, but He let things take their natural course, like evolution.
Oh, but you
like...
think that somebody created God?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. You want me to tell you what I really think? Like my actual view? I
Okay.
think we're a simulation.
Of course you do. Why?
I think that we're all like, you know how there's like GTA like players, like I think we're all in like a multiplayer like game, and like when we're gonna wake up or something, we're probably like aliens.
On what statistical basis do you have for thinking that this is the case?
Because I'm a computer engineer and I can really see how that's the case. Like that's my strongest. Like that's
What
what I
can
think
you,
is.
you
Really...
can see how what's the case?
I can see how we're a simulation because think about
Why?
how we're making GTA, right?
Yeah.
We're very limited in like our intelligence and power and stuff compared to like, let's say for example, like what is it, type 3, type 4 civilization? We're not even the type 1, right?
Hey, you know what's funny? Suppose that you're a type 4 civilization. You still wouldn't be able to simulate an Earth accurately. You know that, right?
Hey, I don't know. Let's say maybe
No,
a type
this
6 can.
has been mathematically
Hey,
proven.
But but that doesn't matter. Maybe a type 6 can.
There are no type 6 civilization. It's not like a thing.
What's the highest type?
Type 4, which is
Really?
which is
Even-
in some sense
But how
like
do they know
domination
that,
of the
though?
entire universe, which is not possible, by the way. But
I think that's true though. I think you're right with that because you can't simulate a whole Earth, but you could go higher than that. Because how do you know type 4 is the highest civilization? How do you know you can't go to type 30?
type 4 is
You're
the
gonna
whole
say maybe
universe.
the laws of entropy or whatever.
Type 4 is the whole
but
universe.
How do you know you can't break that? Huh?
The universe is everything, right? It's
Okay,
everything
how
that
do
you
you know
have
you
access
can't
to.
go outside of it, Blitz? Why can't you go outside of the universe?
There, by definition, there
expanding
isn't
every
an
day,
outside
no?
of the universe.
There is. It's called the unobservable universe, no?
No, there's an outside of the observable universe. It's not an outside of the
Yes,
universe.
which is called the unobservable universe because we don't know how
no,
big
no,
it is. 'Cause
the
light
outside of the
sometimes
universe
travel
as a
to
whole.
reach that.
There is no outside of the universe as a whole.
There is. It's called the unobservable universe, unless you count the
No,
whole
no, no. The
universe
universe as a whole
unobservable and
contains
observable.
the observable and the unobservable universe.
Huh?
The universe as a whole contains the observable and the unobservable. Actually, I'm sorry.
You can't quantify it then. You can't quantify it. Because you don't know the unobservable universe. Nobody.
Sure,
does.
you can. We actually know the
can't.
process by which you can extract energy, and you can never extract energy from beyond your observable universe. Turns out.
It's because light hasn't reached us yet. You can't measure anything. That's not true. Bro thinks he's speaking to an elementary school kid.
No, I'm speaking to an engineer who thinks he knows. I'm speaking to an engineer who thinks he knows more than he does.
I don't think I know more.
Are you
than
familiar?
I do. I think you know.
Have
way
you
less than
ever heard
should.
of the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Yeah.
Okay, well you are exhibiting it right now. Like it's really really bad.
I think you're just trying to keep up with an engineer too. Imagine if I was a physicist.
So
It'd be crazy.
So imagine me talking shit to you about computer science or computer engineering when I'm making clearly obvious mistakes,
really love
right?
Physics too. I just really love physics.
You can love physics, but you don't. But apparently, you don't know anything about it.
Hey, I don't. I'm not gonna lie. You know a billion times more than.
So
me
then,
in
why do
physics,
you think
that's
I'm
it.
wrong and you're
That's
right?
it. Because I think logically, like with all the things around us in the world,
You
with
think
all these
logic? Wait, you
scientific
haven't offered a
concepts, how
single
everything's
logical
perfect.
argument, by the way, just to be clear.
To not believe in a creator, I think is just foolish.
You
In any
haven't
creator,
considered
not
a single
believe in a certain
logical
one.
argument.
Just one that fits your needs the most. That one that
You
helps-
you
that
haven't
would help
considered
your
a
life
you haven't
most.
presented a single logical argument. Like present one. Give me a syllogism.
I gave you one. You couldn't answer it. You said, "I don't know who put the things there before the
Sorry.
Big
What
Bang."
was the
That
syllogism?
was such
Go
a
ahead and
bad
repeat
answer.
it. What's premise one?
The Big Bang happened, correct?
Is that your premise one?
That's my. I'll give you 3 premises.
Okay, premise one, Big Bang happened. Sure, agreed.
Yes. Premise 2: things were required for the Big Bang to happen.
How do you defend that position?
Because you said that stuff was there to require.
I mean,
the
I'm
Big
willing
Bang
to
happen, or
accept
the
it, but do you have an
absence of
argument for it?
Hey, I'm going off of your word, Blitz. You're the physicist.
Okay, sure. We can just accept the premise. Sure. Something
Yes.
was required for the Big Bang to happen. Sure. Okay.
Yes. Now, my third premise is that somebody had to put that something there for it to take place. Because
Okay, how do you
stuff
defend that
doesn't
premise?
just come out of nowhere. Because
How do you-
Blitz, in our
what's the
world,
defense of
things
the
don't
premise?
just come out of nowhere.
What's
Things
the
don't just
defense of the
come out of
premise?
nowhere now.
Is the defense of the premise just intuition, or?
Yes.
Oh, okay. What if I don't have that same intuition?
You should. You're a physicist. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
I would expect you to
familiar
have.
with- Are you familiar with like any sort of quantum foam or like?
I'm familiar with a little bit of quantum physics, but
Like, I
that's
mean,
just-
because
just
things
basic
don't come out
concept.
of nowhere. Like, things definitely
Exactly, they
seem a lot of things definitely seem uncaused in the quantum realm.
Okay, but we don't know everything about the quantum realm. Quantum realm doesn't
Okay,
define
you're right.
things on
But we don't know anything about
macro
we don't know
scale.
everything about the universe. So why should I believe that the only way that something can cause a Big Bang is by having a person to do it?
I never said a person. It could be an entity. It could be just a creator.
That's what I
Anything that
that's what
put
I
that
mean
there.
by that's what I mean by a person. I just mean a creator.
Yeah. So there has
So
to
how
be
do
a
you
creator.
so
bro,
so to be
'cause
clear, you don't
'cause
actually
you
have a
didn't put
defensive
it there.
You don't actually have a defensive premise 3. It's just intuition, right?
Yeah, and you can't give me an answer. You just say, "Oh,
Well,
it
no,
was
no,
just there."
like
That doesn't make sense.
when you present an argument, it's your job to defend the premises. I mean, like for example, I can give you
But
a
you
way
can't
that
give
the
me an
Big
answer,
I
though.
can I've given you an answer already. I've described
You,
a way
you
that
said
the
it
Big
was
Bang
just
could have
there.
happened.
That's not an answer.
I've
I'm not
described a
gonna-
way that the Big Bang could have happened without requiring a creator. Namely, there could have been a prior state that caused the Big Bang, a prior physical state following physical laws that caused the Big Bang.
Okay. Okay, lovely. And now, who made that physical state follow those
A
physical laws?
state
Who
prior
designed
to
it?
that.
And the state prior to that. You see, this is the thing.
goes
Like
back
God
forever.
has a
It goes
God,
back
who has a God,
forever.
who has a God. I know, I agree. But
Yeah. So
ultimately,
there's
there's
just a whole bunch
creator
of
who
physical
leads to a
states causing
creator.
each other.
Ultimately, it's just recursion, man. It's infinite recursion.
Yeah, and that's fine. There's no issue with that.
Yeah, but the issue is that to have recursion, there needs to be a creator. Because
Why?
the recursion doesn't start if
What's
there's
the
no
argument for
creator.
that?
Because God has a God that has a God that has a God. Like you said, the beginning has a physical event
Wait,
before the beginning. that has a
what's the
physical event
argument? What's
before
the
that.
argument for an infinite past? What's the argument for an infinite past requiring a creator?
Wait, say that again. An infinite
What's
past
the
requiring a
argument
creator?
for an infinite past requiring a creator?
Because how can you just keep going backwards if somebody doesn't make it go backwards?
Asking a question isn't an argument.
No, I'm asking it to you. You can't answer it though.
Wait, sure. You can describe it perfectly well mathematically. There's no issue there.
Okay. And you need to have a function that sends it there, right? God is that function.
I don't know what you mean you need a function that sends it there. It's just a coordinate. It's a coordinate that extends in for forever in both directions.
But to go in recursion, Blitz, you need to have.
There's
a
no
recursive
recursion here.
formula.
Wait, do you think that you have to go
There's
in
infinite
recursion? Do you have to
Yeah,
think that you
infinite recursion.
do
is
you
the
think
same
that
thing
you
as
have to
going back.
go in recursion in order to define the real number line?
You can go in recursion. No, you can't actually, because the real.
You don't need to. You can
You
just
can't
say
do
that
that.
the real number line exists.
The real number line's uncountable, though. You can't define it.
Yeah, you absolutely can define it. You can use Dedekind
You can't.
cuts.
So you can list me every real number,
No, you can define it. You can define it via Dedekind cuts.
but you can't define it 100%.
Yes, you
Can I
can. How
define
do you
it
think it's
5%?
defined? Here,
So
let me
if
show
I
you
were to
something.
tell you, list me all the numbers between 0 and 1, you can't do that.
That's
can't
not how
define
you
it
define.
100%.
That's not how you
could-
define the real numbers.
You could define it generally. Oh, so how do you define real numbers?
I'm gonna show you. One second, pulling something up.
Okay. It's countable. Learn cardinals. Who said the real set is countable?
The real numbers are not countable. Look up Dedekind
Yeah,
cuts.
I don't know. I
This
don't
is
know
how
which
you
one
can.
of
This
you-
is one of the
said that.
classical ways that you can construct the real numbers. Okay. It's totally
But here's the
definable. You
thing.
can define every
Yo,
single one of them.
You see right there. Look. Can you zoom in between that? Can you zoom in on the figure? On the figure. To the right, please. Yeah. You see between 239 over 169 and 1393 over 985. I could give you a billion numbers between those.
Yeah. Your
Exactly.
point?
And everybody could give you a billion numbers between those. Between those.
That doesn't
it's
mean that you
infinitely
can't
recursive.
define the real numbers using Dedekind cuts.
No, you can, but I'm saying it's not as precise. It's not 100% defining it because
It is 100% defining it. In fact, this is how it's defined
Yeah.
mathematically.
I'm sure it is because everybody just reads it like that, but you can't 100% define the real
You
number
should
line.
really go take like an introduction to like mathematical analysis course or something like that.
I'm not. Yeah. I wish I could. I wanted to take real analysis and complex analysis, but it was outside the engineering curriculum, and I really just didn't want to pay for the extra classes. But I love math and all these
Go
things.
sign up
but
at a community
my
college.
point of view for coming up here was I think life would go a lot smoother. I'm not saying that your life is going bad. I think it would go a lot smoother if you just believe in a creator that best suits your needs. Any religion that would help you, I feel like. Because believing
I don't
in
think
no
that any
creator, I feel
religion
like
would help me.
a lot of problems. I feel it gives you a lot of problems that you don't have to deal with. Blitz. Like, a
No,
lot
it
of
doesn't give me any
unnecessary
problems. What problems does it give me?
I mean, hey, I wanted to pick your brain and see what you thought, but I don't know. Maybe
Well,
we
now
both
you
think
know.
different ways. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you letting me come up here. I really do. I really
brother.
appreciate it. Thank you for the debate.
Take care.
You have a good day. Thank you.
All right, we have some super chats to go through. Remember, if you want to support me, there's a good way to do it. So, LeClown, thank you for the galaxy, Toby. LeClown says for $2, I will pray for you. Well, look, as long as praying for me also comes with money, I'm happy to take it. Cranky Old Cuber with the $5 says, Morning, Dr. Blitz. I hope all is well with you. This guy is personal incredulity personified. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, and if we get to 100K likes on TikTok or 200 likes on YouTube, I will put my hair down. This old rag. Oh, actually, I think we have a guest on YouTube. No, we don't have a YouTube guest. Come on, open up. All right, let us talk to, I don't know, Lissandro. Oops, brought up the wrong person. I guess we're talking to Israel. Israel, how's it going? You there?
Hello?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I
What
was just
got
at the gym. My bad.
You're good.
The Catholic God.
Okay. And what's your best argument to support that god?
I don't really have an argument. I just wanted to ask, what type of, like, would it be like a philosophical, like, proof that you will need to
Anything,
believe
really.
in a God?
Anything besides somebody else telling me about their experience. I'd be happy to be convinced in any way.
Oh, okay. Have you ever heard anything that was remotely convincing?
Not really. I don't know if that's just because the people I've talked to are just very bad at defending the position, or if it's just not true though.
Okay. You know, I'm not like the most knowledgeable. I just wanted to ask to see if I could have like a baseline of like what to build on or anything like that.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for being here, Israel.
Thank you.
Do you have anything against a specific religion or just view it as statistically unlikely? Well, I think that some of them, like, I think that religions with hell doctrines are, like, generally pretty evil. Because hell doctrines are, like, horribly unjust. And if you believe that people are going to hell, I think that that, like, makes you kind of like a bad person. Or maybe not a bad person, but makes you certainly indoctrinated. Asmo, how's it going?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, but your microphone's pretty quiet. Can you talk closer to your microphone?
Okay, sure, I'll try.
Still very quiet.
I'm going to try to go about... I don't know how to make it better.
Oh, that's a
I'm
little bit
trying
better.
to talk as loud as possible.
That's
close
good,
to it
that's
as
good.
possible. Okay, great. Now, is it fine if I am an atheist, but I still try to convince you?
No.
Okay, then...
I don't like, I don't have anything against people doing devil's advocate somewhere else. I just don't like doing it here. It's not interesting or fun. But I do appreciate you being honest. I honestly appreciate it. It's much more frustrating when people just lie. All right, let's bring up Nakano. Nothing created everything. That's not my view.
Hello.
Nakano, how's it going?
Hey, what's up? How's it been?
I'm doing all right. What God do you believe in?
Catholic.
Okay, and what is your best argument for that position?
Right. First, we postulate on the belief that everything created requires a creator.
I think that that's just, like, analytically true. Are you walking through the forest, by the way? You there?
Yeah.
Okay, because your footsteps are very loud.
Okay, here, I'll find a place to stand.
Okay.
Okay. Anyways, so you disagree with that principle?
No, I think it's probably true. Like, analytically, meaning that, like, yes, by definition, if something is created, then it was created, then it has a creator. But then, by that same definition,
so
I just don't think that everything was created.
Yeah. So do you think, well, I guess, would you say the same if something had a beginning, it had to be created?
No.
No, okay. So you disagree with that idea?
Yeah, I mean, like, think about, like, imagine, like, a crystal growing in a cave, right? You could say that that crystal had a beginning, but, like, it wasn't, like, created.
Yeah.
It just formed.
Well, wasn't it created by the different elements going through chemical processes?
I mean, if you want to use the word created for that, if that's what you mean by created, including, like, these
Yeah, I
kind of,
don't
like,
mean like
natural
created
formations.
by
If
yeah,
by
I don't mean
that,
like created like as...
then I disagree with the first premise, given that definition of created. Then I don't think that everything that was created needs a creator.
Okay, I got you. Well, anyways, I guess we can move on. So, I mean, would you assume that, or do you believe that, I guess, if the Big Bang happened, that therefore the universe began?
Not necessarily, no.
Really? So, like, I mean, I guess, what do you think about that, I guess? You're a physicist.
I mean, I'm pretty agnostic on it. Like, I'm pretty torn. I kind of lean towards it actually not having a beginning, and the Big Bang was just a particular event in the infinite lifetime of the universe. But I'm pretty agnostic. I'm like maybe 60-40 or 70-30 leaning towards the universe not having a beginning.
So, like, if the universe was eternal is your other option versus a singularity expanding?
Well, nobody buys into the singularity anymore. But yeah, so either a finite past or an infinite past. Yes, the infinite past. I kind of lean towards the infinite past.
Okay, so I mean, I guess here's my idea. Okay, first I want to talk about the infinite past. Would a infinite past, how would you move through an infinite amount of time to get to the present day?
Why would you have to?
Well, isn't that what you're saying? If the universe was eternal, are you saying time is not eternal but the universe?
No, I am. But I just don't understand what it means to pass through an infinite amount of time. Like, it's not like there was a start infinitely long ago. There just never was a start.
Yeah, but I mean, even if there was, like, even if you're going like I say, infinitely in one direction. I mean,
But we're
could you
not.
explain that better?
But we're not going. So, like, look, when we talk about how long it takes to get from point A to point B, what we mean is that there's some time A and some time B, and we're trying to figure out how much duration was between them.
Yeah.
There's no 2 points on an infinite timeline that are infinitely far away from each other that you ever have to cross over.
So, I mean, I guess, so you're saying there's only point B, which is today, and no point A?
Well, there's point B and then point A. You can put point A wherever you want in the past, but it'll always be a finite time ago.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Anyways, let's move on to the other premise you said, where you believe it was cause versus eternal.
No, so the point is I kind of lean towards it having been eternal, but I'm like 70-30 on that, with the other option being not eternal.
Okay, well, can we talk about the 30%?
Sure.
Like, so, yeah. So, like, so you said 30% it was caused, correct?
No, that it's just not eternal. That there was a first moment.
Okay, so if there was a first moment, what would that insinuate about? I mean, in your opinion, about
that just means that there weren't any temporal moments prior to that, right?
Okay, I hear you on that. I guess I'll just ask like one or two more questions.
Sure.
So I mean, I'm sure you've heard of Pascal's wager, right?
Yep.
So I mean, even if like 30%, I mean, I guess you don't necessarily believe it was caused. You just say that was the first temporal event. Wouldn't that still give some validity to the Pascal's wager? Like the chances? No. No,
not at all. Pascal's wager only works if you think the only two options are Christianity or atheism.
I mean, if you say was God.
Sorry, you're cutting out. Want to say that again?
Yeah, I'm saying, I guess just given, do you think there's any % chance that there is a God? Like, are you agnostic or fully atheist?
Yeah,
Agnostic,
I mean, like, so I would say, like, my credence is, like, 99% or something like that, or 99.9%. So, like, yeah, there's a small sliver of a chance that I'm wrong. And I'm happy to say, like, yeah, I don't think I'm 100% right. I don't think I'm 100% right, guaranteed to be right about anything. But, like, I'm pretty certain I am.
Okay, but
so...
Like, okay,
yeah, I mean, I could be wrong.
saying.
That's why I do these lives. If I wasn't interested, if I didn't think it was even possible that I was wrong, I wouldn't do the lives.
Yeah, okay. So I mean, so what about the consequences based off of your belief? Like, if you were, even if there was only 1%, isn't the consequence so much greater versus the reality of it?
I don't think that we know what the consequences are for just a God existing.
Well, I mean, can't we kind of ascertain which God would exist based off probabilities?
No.
No? I'm saying, like,
so.
You don't think you can say, well, at least through a skeptic's view, the most, out of the gods, which one's most probable?
So, I mean, like, just, are we just talking about gods that we know about?
Well, I'm talking about, I mean, gods we know about, yeah. Can you ascertain which one?
Probably the Jewish God.
The Abrahamic God?
No, just the one that the Jews pray to, not the Christians, not the Muslims.
All right, why do you say that?
Well, because the Christianity has the problem of the Trinity, which is like absolutely nonsense, and and Islam just has a historical disadvantage. So,
I mean, yeah. So you say the Jewish God, okay?
Maybe Zoroastrianism, or Haramundi, I think is his name. That has a bigger historical advantage than Judaism. If we're talking about like genuine gods and not like deism, by the way.
Yeah, so you're kind of just going with like the oldest one, or
well, I mean, look, so I actually don't think that makes any of those particularly probable at all. It's just perhaps the most probable amongst the ones that we've heard of.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I guess given that, you can at least ascertain. I mean, according to some Greek philosophers like Carneades, you can at least ascertain which one is most probable and believe in it, at least in the sense of which one is most likely. Because I get what you're saying.
Well,
like,
but consider this. Suppose that let's just use an example. Suppose that Christianity was twice as likely to be true as Blitzianity, right? Like, just hypothetically, let's say there's a religion called Blitzianity, and Christianity, just from the historical evidence or whatever, is twice as likely to be true. But if the hell of Blitzianity is 10 times worse than the hell of Christianity, then that means that you should still believe in Blitzianity, just on the weighings of the probabilities.
Yeah, no. I mean, I guess I get what you're saying, but I don't necessarily agree with that. Given that, at least in my view, is that the difference between that and Pascal's wager is that there is no consequence. You have to live as an atheist. You have to live with almost a nihilistic worldview. Rather, with Christianity, there is a eventual, there's a consequence and a good side. While in atheism, there is only nothing afterwards, right?
Well, yeah, but believing in nothing doesn't mean that that if there exists something afterwards that you automatically get nothing, right? Like if you're a universalist, if you're the universalist kind of Christian, then atheists go to heaven anyway.
Yeah.
Right? So being an atheist wouldn't have a negative side effect to universalists.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, would that necessarily translate over? I mean, like again to like our probabilities. What is most likely? I mean, there is no real scripture that is really justifying the universalist Christianity worldview.
Yeah,
So
but
it's less probable.
but my point is we like just the only reason I brought that up was because just being an atheist doesn't guarantee, if a god exists, doesn't guarantee that you get the bad place or that you don't get to go to the good place, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So that's only guaranteed on certain interpretations of certain religions. And once we get to the point of evaluating the specific claims of religions, now you have like 50,000. And so on that basis alone, none of the particular claims of the religions are probable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least how I view it is I feel like you can ascertain and analyze based off the probabilities. And
okay, let me ask you this: what's more likely to be true, Christianity or the Christian God, or atheismo?
Atheismo?
Atheismo. Atheismo. It's a divine being that created the universe.
I would go with the Christian God.
Why?
Well, because of the evidence.
What evidence?
I mean,
what evidence is stronger than the evidence for atheismo?
Well, for one, the witnesses of the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
So just to be clear, you're making an argument for that one thing has more evidence than another thing, and you don't even know what the evidence is for the other thing, right?
Well, yeah, but I've never heard of atheism. I'm making kind of I'm guessing you just made up atheism. I may be wrong. Maybe it is a thing, but what's the evidence?
So atheismo is the evidence is personal revelation, of course, but atheismo is the God that sends only atheists to heaven, and it sends every other religion, every other believer to the worst hell imaginable.
Wow.
He just really doesn't like theists, right? But he really likes atheists. So, even if such a God has a minuscule chance of existing, because the hell is so bad and the heaven is so good, overwhelmingly you should be a non-believer so that you get into atheismo heaven. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, but that's not really what my point is about weighing the consequences versus the likelihood, right? I was saying...
Well, no, but the point is it doesn't matter what the likelihood of atheismo being real is, as long as it's not zero. As long as the likelihood is above zero, it is overwhelmingly a better decision to make to not believe in atheismo, to not believe in any god, so that even on the teensy tiny chance that you go to atheismo hell, you really want to avoid that.
Yeah. Well, but what I was saying, I guess, is that it doesn't once your religion has consequences and good, it doesn't really matter. It's only about the principle or percentage chance. But atheists,
no, it absolutely does. If you're doing Pascal's wager appropriately, you actually are doing a comparison of the quality of the consequences with the probabilities of the consequences.
Yeah, this is a revisionist version.
Okay, so you're not actually doing like a probabilistic estimate at all.
No, I'm not evaluating the consequences based in versus.
But then you're not. So then why should I believe if it's just based off of vibes?
Well, no, it's the fact that in atheism it's a neutrality. Rather than in religion there isn't a neutrality. So then you just evaluate based off percentage chance afterwards.
Atheism isn't neutrality either.
Just
because you're atheist doesn't mean you automatically get a neutral outcome.
You disagree with that?
Yeah.
I heard what you say. I heard what you said about universalism. You're right. I agree.
Yeah,
with that.
and if you're a Buddhist, you can achieve nirvana without being while being an atheist. In fact, a lot of Buddhists are atheists, and there are other religious traditions where it's based off of works and not faith, right? So it doesn't matter what your beliefs are.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I guess I agree with you. That's pretty well said. I do have a question about evolution, though. Like, it's kind of
Sure.
a genuine one. Like,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
isn't
sure.
like really religious or anything. That's just actually something I was asking about. So you know, like Luca, the last
yeah.
universe common ancestor. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I mean, kind of, it doesn't really matter, but like, I guess you could say Fuka or first universally common ancestor, really just, which is kind of hypothetical, but really just an early ancestor of life.
Mhm.
So my question is, how can you kind of possess this entire argument around that all extant species between both Fuka and Luca had to either die out or assimilate to Luca?
How can you do that? I don't understand the question.
Like, I guess, okay, so I mean, so the distance, like the year-wise, the distance between, at least from my research, between like Fuka and Luca is like 300 million years, which gives a lot of time for extant species
Well, to be
life.
clear, we don't really know anything about Fuka, right?
Yeah.
Like, we have a lot of estimates, or we can estimate stuff, but like, yeah, we know nothing about it.
Yeah, but it's really just like, I guess, like the first ancestor of modern life, right?
Mhm.
I guess. So, I mean, after saying that, like the distance at least has been estimated. I mean, it's probably not scientifically consistent, but
So what's the question?
So like the species, the amount of species between it, Luca and Fuka are like millions. The extant species are like in the millions. So how can you possess that? All of those species.
The extinct species. Well, consider this. And just as an analogy, almost nobody who lived 2,000 years ago has a living descendant now. Almost nobody.
Yeah. Direct?
In fact,
descendant?
Yeah, no, almost nobody has any descendants that are still alive.
How would that work out? Like, I'm kind of confused.
Yeah, one second.
Sorry.
Essentially, most genetic lines for any species end up dying out, right? Because you'll end up having just consider this. How closely related to you am I? We maybe are like 20th cousins or something like that, right?
Yeah. I mean,
which means that if you go further back than that, our ancestors will be the same. But there were more people alive than just our ancestors. So that means that all of those other people who were alive wouldn't have had any direct descendants. Wouldn't have had any descendants that are still alive. Like, consider the most recent common ancestor, or consider the most recent ancestors of humans. The most recent common ancestor of humans. Well, if we all share an ancestor, I don't know. Like, the point is the pedigree tree gets smaller, and so and eventually it starts overlapping with itself. But there were more people alive at the time. So if that's true, then those people just don't have living descendants.
Huh. I mean, that's pretty interesting. So
all this is to say is that's all that happened from Fuka to Luca on an evolutionary timescale.
Okay, so you're saying they like assimilated, or
they either assimilated or they died out. Like, I mean, that's the way to phrase it.
Okay, I mean, okay, that sounds good. It's just kind of confusing, you know, seeing that only like one species out of like 300 million somehow. But I get it. It's not like one event. It's over multiple hundreds of years to kind of just assimilated in.
Or they died, right? I mean, like, bacteria reproduce really, really quickly. So it's super, super plausible that like you can have like millions of generations in like, or rather thousands of generations in a single year, even perhaps in like, you know, a few weeks. So it's not so implausible that like they would either like merge through genetic or through horizontal gene transfer, or some of them would die out.
Well, thanks for the discussion.
Of course.
I'll see you.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
All right. Let's bring up our next guest. I think we have a guest on YouTube, so I'm going to bring them up. Lulu Tango, how's it going? Can you hear me? Lulu Tango. Yeah, I need to come up with a better way to explain that, because I don't think I explained it well. It is true, but I need to explain it better. Okay, Lulu Tango's not here. All right, let's bring up another guest from TikTok. Oh, I'm out of water. Actually, there's a horizontal gene transfer euphemism. No, it's a real thing. But it is funny. All right, let's bring up Aaron Kratinger.
Hey there.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Yeah, thanks for bringing me on. I'm reading your description. I don't know if I qualify as opposition, but I have like some questions, and I'd be interested in getting your opinion.
So I will let you ask questions if,
Okay.
and only if, you entertain chat for 30 seconds while I go fill up my water bottle.
Okay, I can try that.
I don't hear you.
Well, nobody's posting anything here.
All right, I'm on my way back. You don't have to entertain chat for that long. All right, what you got for me?
Yeah, dude, they don't feel entertained. This is not good. Okay, so, all right. So one question I'm having is like you were talking about this like infinite recursion universe, and I wonder if that's like describing a behavior of something, but not its creation.
It's describing a thing, and arguably it means it doesn't need a creation.
Possibly. I mean, is that well? Okay, yeah, possibly. Have you heard of Gödel's incompleteness theorem?
Yes, I have.
Okay, yeah, I'm pretty interested in that and how it maybe applies to some of these things. One of them is that from inside of a system, a logical system, you can either have a complete description of that system, but you have an inconsistency in it, something you cannot rectify with logic. Mm-hmm. The other possibility is that you're in an incomplete system and you can be logically consistent.
Yeah.
That's mathematics.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so what I'm wondering is if, a statement like that, okay, it's infinitely recursive, but it exists, but it didn't need to be created. Mm-hmm. Is that just an inconsistency?
Why would that be an inconsistency at all?
How does something come to basically have any type of behavior without existing or being created?
It did exist. What? Or being created? Why does something need to be created in order to exist?
Well, I don't know if there's a logical answer to it. Yeah.
Well, it's just an assertion, right?
It's just an assertion that
so it's a fundamental belief that a lot of people have, because we think of things existing in the universe, and when we think of this phone adapter, we're like, yes, this thing exists because it was created in a factory. Therefore, it must be true that anything that exists must have been created. But that's like a very universal, that's a very inside the universe way of thinking about things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And that kind of goes back to Gödel's incompleteness theorem, though, because it's like all we can ever do is think about this from inside of our universe, right? Like that's our perspective. That's the logical framework we get.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, so I think the part of like the philosophical extensions like the incompleteness theorem are really that like a system can never actually be fully understood from inside of itself.
Yeah, that's true.
You need some external perspective or more information than inside the system. So it's like, okay, that's like one area where it's like maybe something doesn't need to be created, but maybe it does. And I would kind of lean towards if it exists, it probably had creation. Now, that's not necessarily to say that a god is a solution to that answer.
Why? Hold on. Why does that follow? That if it exists, it probably had a creation?
Yeah, if it exists, it probably had a creation.
Why does that follow? Why is that true?
Why is that true?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Well, all right. Here's the best I can get, because this is I don't have a good answer. But if we one thing that came from Gödel's incompleteness theorem is you really thought about like using symbols to help create logical frameworks to understand things.
I'm familiar with Gödel's incompleteness theorem, yes.
Yeah. So like one thing you could do is, let's say you have a symbol for non-existence and you have a symbol for existence. Now, you could conceivably create existence from non-existence because you could apply.
This seems incoherent.
You could apply a logical, let's say you could apply a logical framework to it, that the non-existence of non-existence is existence.
So to be clear, what you're trying to do is you're trying to describe the universe. You're reifying logical systems to try to apply a logical system to the universe. Logical systems describe, they don't prescribe, right?
Correct. Yeah.
There's absolutely no reason to think that Gödel's incompleteness theorems have anything to do with the existence of the universe. Like, absolutely no reason. Unless you believe in Tegmark's mathematical universe, which you shouldn't because it's very silly.
Well, I guess
there's no reason to think it's relevant.
Maybe the extension is just that, okay, Gödel's incompleteness theorem is really just trying to define a logical system and the limitations of that. So I would maybe
that's
just
all it's
argue.
doing.
What's that?
That's all it's doing, yeah.
Yeah, that's all it's doing. So I just argue that those logical limitations will apply to any framework we use to describe the universe and its creation.
Perhaps, but that doesn't actually mean that we are describing the way the universe actually is.
Oh yeah, totally true. Agreed. Yeah.
Like, our universe is not a logical framework. It's described by a logical framework, perhaps, but it's not a logical framework.
So it's not a logical framework. Okay.
Like, it's a universe. A universe isn't made of symbols, right?
It's not made of symbols, no, but do logical rules apply?
No, rules are descriptive, not prescriptive.
They're not you don't think rules are logical rules are prescriptive?
No. Logical rules don't have any causative power.
So, I mean, is it a moot point to try to apply logic to the problem of the creation of the universe then?
No, you can apply logic to describe it, to describe what we know, and to try to deduce what we know about like observations, and deduce what we know about, you know, intuitions that we have, or deduce what we think are true about like intuitions and stuff like that. But to try to say that like, well, Gödel's incompleteness means that the universe XYZ, like, no, that's not how it works. Gödel's incompleteness is a statement about formal statements, or it's a statement about formal languages. It's not a statement about universes.
I would say it's just a statement of our limitations of understanding our universe.
Sure. No, it's a statement of our limitations of understanding logical systems, or describing logical systems, rather.
True. Yes. So the in conclusion there, I guess, would be you have to apply faith to close the gaps in the incompleteness.
The gaps in the incompleteness might not be like, so we use ZFC, right? ZFC is the standard logical system used to do mathematics. And as far as we're aware, there's not a single, so I mean, like, ZFC almost certainly isn't inconsistent, which just means that it's incomplete. And as far as we're aware, there's the incompleteness has nothing to do with physics. It will never show up in physics, because physics is very, very well understood. The mathematics involved in physics is very, very well understood, and so just describing the universe as a whole just doesn't require completeness. It doesn't require a complete mathematical theory. Like, you don't like Gödel's incompleteness theorems has nothing to do with the fact that 2 + 2 = 4. As long as there's not an inconsistency, if it's just an incomplete theory, which ZFC almost certainly is, then 2 + 2 = 4 can be perfectly well understood without knowing about the incompleteness.
Yeah, true, but that you do need to leverage at points you will need to leverage just the acceptance that you can't actually prove all of mathematics from its underlying axioms.
And you don't need to.
So,
You don't
yeah,
need
so
to. If you want to use mathematics, you don't need to.
I actually totally agree, but it is still the case that it can't be proven that mathematics will always behave a certain way when you're talking about certain problems. It's just like, okay.
No, wait, hold on. No, that's not a correct description of Gödel's incompleteness. All that it's saying is that either there's an inconsistency, which I would have hoped that we would have found by now, because a lot of people have looked into this, so there probably isn't an inconsistency in ZFC, or it's just incomplete, meaning that there are statements that you can say in ZFC that you can't prove in ZFC. And we actually know several of these. For example, in fact, it used to just be called ZF, and then we add the continuum hypothesis, because the continuum hypothesis is an incompleteness of ZF, so we just added another axiom.
Okay, yes. I mean, so I guess...
I'm sorry, not continuum, axiom of choice. I always get the C for continuum and the C for choice confused. But yeah, ZFC is Zermelo-Frankel with axiom of choice. And then you can add on the continuum hypothesis if you'd like.
Okay.
And that would just make it ZFCC or something like that.
I'd like to learn a little bit more about that, because I think I mean, I guess I don't need to take up any more time, but was interested in talking that through with you and appreciate it.
Thanks for being here, bud. Take care. And we got a super chat from Grimlock. Let's get a W. I need a W Grimlock emote, because $20 from Grimlock. Thank you. You're so kind. That's like one margarita at the airport. That's not saying anything about that being a small amount of money. Rather, it's saying that the airport is very expensive. I don't know why my guest box is being so slow. Cooper Mills, you want to go next? All right. All right, it looks like Cooper's not coming up. I'm going to bring up a guest from YouTube. Dank Pasta, how's it going?
Oh shit, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How's it going?
Hello? Sorry, didn't mean to cuss there.
You're allowed to cuss. That's okay.
Good, how are you?
I'm doing okay. What God do you believe in?
I believe in Jesus.
Okay. What is your best argument for the existence of the Christian God?
I would just say, like, morals.
Can you be more specific?
Yeah, sorry. I'm like, kind of nervous right now.
It's okay. I won't bite. Unless you say something stupid, then I might bite. By the way, I should check. How old are you?
I'm 21.
Okay, cool. Anyway, you were saying.
Okay. Just like the moral argument that we all have an instinct view of good and bad.
How does that mean that there's a God, though?
Well, like, how did the morals get there? Like, if
evolution?
you don't believe in a God. But how does evolution, like, teach morals?
I mean, we can see altruistic behavior that evolved in other species as well. Notions of fairness are present in chimpanzees. Notions of loyalty are present in elephants and dogs. So, like, I don't know, these kinds of things that we deem as like moral virtues or like moral, you know, failings are present in other animals as well.
I think like animals too, though, they don't really have like a thought process behind like good and bad. Like, there's a lot of animals that will like kill each other, rape each other, kill their family.
Yeah, a lot of humans will do that too.
Yeah, but there's like, at least for humans, we can like reason behind it.
I
You
don't
know,
think that
like
you
we know
actually
it's
do reason behind emotions. I think that you have, or behind morals. I think that you have morals, and then you come up with some post hoc rationalization.
like, would you say like a psychopath, like Jeffrey Dahmer? He kind of just he didn't think about what he was doing as
I'm
being
sure he
wrong.
thought
He
about it
kind of
afterwards,
did
but
it.
I think he just did stuff that he wanted to do.
Yeah, but afterward, like after he got caught, he like he knew it was wrong. Like the things he was doing was wrong.
Okay. Not all people who do grapes or murders think that.
Wait, say that again.
Not everybody who does horrible things thinks that what they did was wrong.
Yeah, yeah, but it's kind of like ingrained. Like I
Yeah,
don't know
just
if
like
you would.
but it's but look, so the notion of fairness isn't like, so fairness is like one of the, fairness is like an kind of a rudimentary version of justice, right? Like when you're a little kid, you say, "But that's not fair." What you're really saying is, "Well, that's not justice. It's just you're a kid, so you say that's not fair." Because like,
Yeah, yeah,
so chimpanzees have that. Like they have a notion of fairness. Like they get upset when there was an experiment done, and I'm going to butcher the actual details, but the extent of the experiment was something like, one chimpanzee was given one banana and another chimpanzee was given one banana, and they were both fine. But if you take
yeah.
another pair of chimpanzees and you give one of them one banana and another one two bananas, the one with one banana will be upset that they didn't get two bananas, even though they have one banana, which they were fine with.
Uh-huh.
And so like this notion of like fairness, of justice, is present in other animals.
Yeah.
And I just
mean,
don't know why we would think that it's like why we would think it's some special thing to humans that couldn't have evolved.
well, human knowledge is definitely greater than like
Knowledge is, but
chimpanzees.
I don't think that our like instincts are. I mean, our instincts are perhaps more sophisticated, but that doesn't make them any less instinctual.
Well, let me think. Give me a sec. Sorry. If you have any other things you want to bring up too, go for it.
Like about the moral argument, or
Yeah.
well, I'm a moral relativist of one kind or another. So like, I'm just not really going to accept any sort of moral objectivism.
So like, how do you define good or bad, or do you not think there is such thing?
If it agrees with my stances, then I call it good. If it doesn't agree with my stances, I call it bad.
How do you know if someone else is objectively wrong?
I don't think that things are wrong objectively. That's why I'm a moral subjectivist.
So someone could like murder your entire family and not face any consequence, and you would just think that.
No, I would think that that's bad because it doesn't align with my stances and my values.
Well, that person that murdered them thinks it's good.
I don't care what they think.
I'm not sure if I'm getting my point across clearly, but I'm just trying to say that it's kind of like we have our own idea of what is good and bad, not even just
I agree.
like what you were saying. Like, I don't think it's just what you believe is good and bad is what is true, you know?
True in what sense? I don't think that there exists
haven't
a
really given,
universal
like-
good and bad. I don't think that that's even a thing that makes sense to talk about.
I think that we are all born with an idea of good and bad.
I think that there are common features of human psychology that come from evolution. Like, you know, we have this instinctual response towards justice and fairness. We have this instinctual response to like love people that are close to us, like familial relations. We have a lot of like shared human psychology. I agree on that. That's why people are able to get along, even though there is no objective good or bad. Surely there's a lot of commonality in our own subjective goods and bads.
Yeah. Sorry, I haven't been put on the spot like this before. I thought it would be like a good thing for me to do because I'm kind of I don't know. I have my own beliefs, but I don't really go out and say them. I thought this would be a good opportunity to do so.
I mean, all things considered, you picked probably the right person. I'm generally pretty nice.
Yeah, you sound pretty chill.
I appreciate that. Hey,
I
look,
would disagree though. I do think.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. I do think that we all have an idea of what is good and bad.
I agree. I just don't think that that means that there's some good or bad out in the world, like out in the universe, separate from us. Like, we have our own subjective views on what is good and what is bad, and it turns out that for most people, those overlap with other people, right? Like, you know, you and I probably both agree that like murder is bad, even though that's like a thing that we both believe just independently of each other. Like, the reason why you believe murder is bad isn't really related to the reason why I believe murder is bad. We just both happen to have that same belief, right?
We know it's bad though, I would say.
What does it mean to So are you familiar with like the distinction between like objective facts and subjective facts?
No.
So when people say objective, they often think the way that people try to mean subjective is like true. But when philosophers say things like objective facts or objective propositions or something like that, or objective truths, what they mean is something like it would be true even if there were no humans around.
Yeah.
But does it really make sense to talk about things being good or bad if there were no humans, to think that things are good or bad?
Wait, say that again?
Would it really make sense? Like, imagine that there were no humans around. Would things still be evil? Would things still be good?
Well, no, because I mean, if there's like another society that we think is evil, but they think what they're doing is good, I mean, and they took over the world, there wouldn't be any.
Sorry,
people
I mean
wouldn't
like
really
there's no intelligent life that exists at all.
Mm-hmm.
If no intelligent life existed, what would it even mean for something to be good or bad?
We don't live in a world that doesn't have some sort of understanding of each other, and I mean,
so
we all
another way to phrase this is that a subjective fact is a fact that is only true when it is considered by it's either true or false when it's considered by a mind, or when it's held by a mind.
Yeah.
So like it's definitely not true that pizza is objectively delicious, because the question of whether something tastes good is a question that only makes sense to talk about when it's a mind doing the description, right? When it's like a human or an alien or whatever. So when I say that pizza tastes good, I'm not saying this is an objective fact about the world. I'm saying that this is a subjective fact about the world, subjective to my experience, right? And so when I say that morals are subjective, I'm saying that XYZ thing is good to my experience, relative to my experience, right? Relative to my stances, my values, my experiences. That's what I mean when I say that something is good. When I say that something is bad, I mean it doesn't agree with my stances and my experiences and my values.
Do you ever feel guilty for doing something that you know is bad?
Yeah, absolutely. If I do something that doesn't align with my own values, then sure, I'll feel bad about it. Why would I feel guilty about doing something that does align with my values? That's a better question.
Doing something that doesn't align with your values?
That does. Let's say I do something that does align with my values. Why would I ever feel guilty about that?
Well, you wouldn't feel guilty for it because
right,
you believe that it's fine.
So you believe so when you say that they're objective fact or objective moral facts, would you say that that there are things that there are actions which are always bad?
Yeah.
Would lying be one of them?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna run you through an extreme example. Suppose for a moment that you were in 1939 Netherlands, and you're hiding Anne Frank in your attic from the Nazis. The Nazis knock on your door. They say, "Denk pasta, do you have a Juden in your attic?" Would you think that lying is bad in that case?
No, I don't think it would be bad in that case if you were trying to defend someone.
Yeah, like save a life, right?
Yeah, you're trying to save someone.
But that means that it's not always bad.
Yeah, I mean, lying could be used for both good and bad.
And so how did you establish that it was good in this case?
In this case, you're defending someone's life, which I feel like is more important than a lie.
Yeah, and you know what you said there? You feel like it's more important. And you feel that way because those are your values.
Well, that's just what I thought.
I mean, that's the right thing to think, right?
Yeah.
In that case, your values say...
I'm not saying it's good to lie, though, all the time. I'm not saying it's
No, of course. But my point is that like your immediate response, this is a visceral response that you have, is that, of course, in this case, I value someone's life more than I value not lying. And so you say, well, I value this thing more than that thing, therefore it's okay to do this thing. And that's the subjective business. That's what I mean. It depends on what you value.
But if I didn't think it was, or if I did think that it was totally forbidden to lie and that I should tell the truth to that person coming because I have someone held in my house that I'm trying to protect and I would just give them out, wouldn't that make me an evil person? Because I'm just...
Under my view, it would make you an evil person, but not under your own view.
I'm kind of getting lost here. I'm sorry.
Look, all I'm saying is that, like, the intuitive way that we come to moral conclusions is based off of comparing our values, right? When you're confronted with a moral dilemma, you don't if it were the case that there was some objective truth, then there would be no deliberation that you have to do. You wouldn't have to like think internally about what things you care about, right?
Yeah, because I know it's...
Because it would just be some objective thing. There would just be a correct answer, and there's nothing to kind of like weigh the situation. But the fact that you have to do this kind of deliberative process just makes it seem like it's awfully subjective.
I still believe that morals are objective.
That's fair. Here's what I'm going to suggest that you do. You don't have to do this, but if you're interested, if you want to like challenge your view, there's a guy named Lance Bush on YouTube. He's a philosopher, like he's a trained philosopher, and he is a moral anti-realist. So he's kind of like me, but he's more educated on the matter. Just go watch some of his videos. See what you think.
Lance Bush.
Lance Bush. So Lance like the...
How you spell it?
So it's Lance like the medieval
Okay.
stabby thing, and then Bush like the president.
Okay. I'll look into that for sure.
All right, so Dank Pasta, I'm going to let you go so I can move on to another guest. But thanks for being here, bud.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Good
Have a
luck,
good
okay?
one.
Take care.
Thank you.
You got to be nice to the babies, y'all. Got to be nice to the babies. You just lured a person to a book because you have non-answer. Lance Bush is not a book, it's a philosopher. It's the name of a guy. He makes YouTube videos. Did you get a chance to look at my video? It depends on which one. If it was a while ago, I don't remember. Let me look really quick. It was a while ago, I think. One sec. You're actually not even showing up in my inbox. Where are you? Oh, I see it. No, I haven't watched it yet, but I'll watch it later tonight. All right, let's bring up another guest. This time from YouTube or from TikTok. Let's bring up Merhawi, and I think that we have a super chat from Flodrius. Your hair routine and how long you've been growing it?
Hello?
Oh, I've been growing it for so long. And my hair routine is I wash it every other day and then I condition it on the off days.
Hello.
Merhawi, how's it going?
It's going good.